issues. All right, first up on tonight's agenda, we have the mayor's report. Welcome, Mayor Wheeler.
Right. Well, good evening, Council President, members of the City Council. Good evening, audience. So it's good to see all of you. So I just have a few items I'd like to share, a couple projects, updates, and some other initiatives going on. So thank you. First slide, please. All right. So the pickleball court, while this is a small project as compared to the multi-million-dollar road and other infrastructure projects we do, a lot of people are waiting for this to be done. And so we are to the final stage. Right here is a picture of the court resurfacing and relining part of this project. It will be done in June this month. Just so everybody knows, there was a lot of focus on accessibility, which was accomplished last year. There was the parking was reconfigured, a pathway was built, the gate was reconstructed, and also the new portable bathroom going in will have features that are can adapt to meet ADA standards. So we can this will be accessible for folks of all abilities. So we're close, and it's exciting that we're almost there. And hats off to the Bremerton Central Lions Club, and of course there was some contribution from our own community development block grants. Yeah, thank you. Next slide, please. Now this one, as many of you know, we are close to completion. This is with phase one. So all that's left is some signage and striping, and there's just a little bit of construction here. Of course, this is Perry Avenue, and it's looking good, and we appreciate everybody's patience while working through this project. Now the update is the next slide. So many of you have seen the construction barriers, and with all of our road work, the first thing we do is we go underground. And in this case, there's some stormwater in the water systems that need to be updated. Once that's completed, we'll immediately move up to the sidewalk and street reconstruction. All told, this is an $8.5 million project coming to our city. And again, this is a lot of, these are state funds. A lot of it is state funds that we brought back home for the benefit of our city. Next slide, please. So the Washington Avenue 11th Street project, also coming soon. This one will begin approximately August of this year. $6 million project. And this one is has a couple features. The main one is the roundabout coming in at the end of the west end of the bridge, but there'll also be several other features that improve walkability, cycling. There'll be some improved lighting, decorative lighting actually, and some landscaping that goes in, and this will connect us all the way up to Perry or Pacific Avenue. Again, this is starting. We have a planning process we're going through right now, working with the contractor. This will be accomplished in phases to minimize impacts as much as possible on the surrounding community. So we'll keep you updated on that. We'll keep the community updated. Next slide, please. So this is a long-term project that is moving along nicely. I've been getting great feedback from the boaters and folks who use this wonderful region-wide asset, this natural asset that we have in our city. Obviously, we all agree we are the stewards of this tremendous environmental asset that we have. And so we just completed an application to reduce, and to the highest possible extent, phosphorus, which is just done. Phosphorus is control, helps kind of keep the blue-green toxic algae down to a minimum. Obviously, we don't want that. Once you get a bloom, then that's where the lake closures come. We used to have a lot of those. We've reduced those quite a bit, and this helps with that. Aquatic harvesting scheduled between July 10th, August 4th. Again, this all meant to get rid of plants that actually die, decompose, add nutrients to the water, and promote bad things from happening. So the harvesting removes it, actually removes it completely out of the water, and it's disposed of in another landfill. for decomposing away from the water. Water quality monitoring, we'll do that every 2 weeks and then monthly in the winter. So again, while we do get feedback, and especially there is testing once in a while that shows we do have the toxic algae blooms. We've made tremendous improvements and we have a plan to deal with it long term. Next slide, please. West Kitsap Way Planning Study. So online open house, June 15th to July 5th. Virtual presentation, June 22nd. This is from the Highway 3 intersect with Kitsap Way all the way up to the Chico Way Junction. So just for everybody's information, this is a project that's going to set the vision for the future where we'll have sidewalks, better lighting, better cycling opportunities for folks. Just a tremendous project in that part of the city. And so I'm encouraging everybody, viewing audience, to participate in the open house and then even join us in the virtual presentation. Next slide, please. So this is our awesome poet laureate of the city of Bremerton. And I wanted to highlight this new art wrap, which is another awesome city arts program. So both of these together, this is just the most recent one, do Burns Bump in Flight. And it's, you'll have to go down there and see it. For anybody in the audience, viewing audience, or here in person or the council, it's a great work of art and I'm just proud of that. And I want to close by inviting everybody to join our water division manager out in the hallway in the lobby to participate in the water system plan survey. So please stop by, take advantage of the opportunity, and that would be much appreciated. All right, so thank you. Thank you, council, and have a good meeting.
Excellent. Thank you so much. From Locklear, do you have a point of order?
Just wanted to add that the process at Kitsap Lake is wholly non-toxic.
Okay, that's not a point of order, but thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your mayor's report so much. Next, we'll go to the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Coughlin. For approval on the consent agenda are the following items. Claims and check register. 1, check numbers 402-928 through 403-182 and electronic fund transfers B37530 through B37634 in the grand total amount of $2,751,043.75. 2, regular payroll for pay period ending May 15th, 2023 in the amount of $1,069,625.93. 3, regular payroll for pay period ending May 31st, 2023 in the amount of $1,102,477.81. 4, retiree payroll for pay period ending May 31st, 2023 in the amount of $39,975.61. B, minutes of meeting May 17th, 2023. C, minutes of study session May 24th, 2023. D, minutes of special meeting May 31st, 2023. E, agreement with Capital Heating and Cooling, Inc. for the Puget Sound Navy Museum Indoor Climate Control Systems Project. F, contract modification agreement number 1 with Helix Design Group, Inc. for the Equipment Services Facility Interior Remodel and Secure Storage Project. G, purchase of a Leeboy 8500E asphalt paver. H, salary survey recommendations for the Service Support Specialist position, formerly probation officer. I, approval to change vacant therapeutic coordinator position to a service support specialist position. J, approval for additional extra hires for municipal court from June through August 2023. And K, ordinance number 5475 to amend BMC sections 2.76.100 entitled Contract Approval Required and section 2.76.110 entitled Amendments and Change Orders Approval. This concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the public wish to comment on any one of these specific items? Make sure there's nobody online. All right, seeing and hearing none, I'll go to the council for a motion. Yes, Councilmember Dennehy.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I call for the question.
Councilmember Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right.
Next on the agenda is public recognition.
Perfect. As noted in the agenda, public recognition provides an opportunity for attendees to address the council on any city-related item that's not already listed on tonight's agenda. Note this includes the streeteries, which will be presented under item 6A. So if you have comments on the streeteries or anything else on the agenda, hold them for now. But if you have any comments not on anything on the agenda, now's the time. If you have general comments, please line up at the podium, or participating by Zoom, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. We just ask that you state your name for use in the record. If you want to volunteer, if you live or work in Bremerton, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and we'll use a timer system so that everyone is treated equally. With that, I open up public recognition. And we'll start here in the room. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Phil Babcock, and I'm here with the support of West Sound Cycle Club, Peninsula Indoor BMX, and a Facebook group with more than 175 members to request that the city of Bremerton commit to the construction of a pump track in a Bremerton City Park. WSCC will be sending a letter of support via email to the City Council this evening. A pump track is a skills park for bicycles, scooters, and skateboards. It consists of a series of rollers or smooth bumps and berms that can be ridden without pedaling. It's accessible and fun for all ages and skill levels, and would be a gem in the city's park portfolio, as well as Bremerton's complete picture of multimodal transportation. As a father of two, I would love to see this pump track come to fruition for my 3-year-old, who is a regular at PIBMX on his Strider, and my month-old daughter, who will hopefully be riding with her brother in a few years. The idea of a Bremerton pump track has already had some traction at City Hall. With the support of WSCC and Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, I made a presentation to the Parks and Recreation Committee in April of 2021, and the committee members unanimously agreed that an asphalt pump track would be something they'd like to see in a Bremerton Park. In the years since, I've had several conversations with Jeff Alabato regarding the steps needed to be taken to make a pump track a reality, and was happy to learn that he had already investigated building a track before my original presentation. We talked about some ideal locations, and the area of East Park just south of the Ice Center was at the top of the list. For a pump track to be a successful community attraction, it needs 4,000 to 10,000 square feet of flat space with ample parking. The East Park location fits all those criteria, and a rough bid from the world premier pump track builders, Velo Solutions, estimated the total cost of the project to be between $250,000 and $350,000. While East Park was the primary location we discussed, I would be happy to see a track built anywhere in the city as long as it is safely accessible by bike or pedestrian access. The nearest asphalt pump track is in Port Angeles, and our city needs a safe place for people of all ages to develop bicycling skills and community in a space that is easily accessible for all. However, despite enthusiasm for this project, it does not seem to be moving forward. It has not been added to the Park Pros plan, nor the city's comp or master plan as far as I'm aware. I ask that the city amend the pros and or comp plan to include the execution of a pump track on a 5-year timeline. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your comment. Next up, we'll continue in the room here.
My name is Allison Slow-Loris. I'm a Bremerton resident and homeowner, and as 6 out of 7 of you know, owner and operator of a downtown business. I've also worked for a total of 8 years with unhoused people in Seattle, and I am here to say that it's time for Bremerton to stop playing whack-a-mole with people that are unhoused. The housing crisis is not going to go away. It's been for so long. We cannot provide services because then people will come here to use them. That does not apply anymore because every city in this country is flooded with homeless people. Part of it is because for the last 10 or 15 years, a major strategy of wealth management firms has been to buy up every piece of residential rental property that comes on the market. You can look up the statistics of what proportion of rental housing in any given major city is owned by corporations that manage it from afar for maximum profit. Anybody who has ever messed up in the slightest in having housing is disqualified from ever having housing again, because you have to have a perfect record and credit rating and everything to get into any market rate housing, even if you have the money. So we have to accept that there are people in Seattle and in Bremerton and in Poolsville and in Port Orchard who have no place to live except in the woods, from which they've been driven out by new property development, which will not have any apartments for them. There is a village on the block of Martin Luther King Way between Warren Avenue and Park Avenue. I pass down it most days, multiple times some days. I'm acquainted with some of the people because our store donates food both to a program that feeds people there a couple times a week and also directly. I've observed people taking care of each other, being kind to each other, behaving like neighbors used to. When chairs are thrown out on the sidewalk, they collect them and bring them to their street and sit together in the evenings. Anyway, they're not going to go away. So I am urging that we establish something like Seattle's urban rest stop, where people without housing can use restrooms, can shower, can launder their clothes.
Seconds.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comment.
Greetings, Council. My name is Travis Merrigan. I'm with Safe Streets Bremerton, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the 6th Street Bike Lane project. I was excited to hear all the wonderful bike projects we do have coming online in Perry and 11th, but one that's left out and that isn't currently planned for is 6th Street. And we think it's Safe Streets Bremerton is one of the most important bike projects in the entire city. But you don't have to take my word for it. This is the 2007 non-motorized transportation plan, in which 6th Street was labeled dangerous for bikes and pedestrians. And further went on to say, quote, the downtown sub-area plan has identified 6th Street as a road diet candidate. The city should, it goes on. The city should take advantage of this opportunity by restriping 6th Street to include bicycle lanes. That was 2007. This is the 2016 comprehensive plan, where it placed 6th Street on its list of bicycle priority network and said that 6th Street could be a focus of targeted bicycle and pedestrian improvements. That was 2016. And not to be outdone, the current mayor, just last September, it serves on the Joint Compatibility Transportation Plan. The JCTP listed 6th Street as the preferred alternative to deal with the anticipated growth and transportation issues caused by growth in the city and by the base, the shipyard. These aren't just documents, okay? These aren't just studies. This is the citizens of the city, the elected officials, and city administrators getting together and saying over and over again, we need a bike lane on 6th Street. Every single time the city is asked, they've come to the same conclusion, 6th Street needs a bike lane. Right now, currently, we're in the middle of a repaving project, a multi-year repaving project. In 2024, a section of this project will be done between in the middle there. And it's a tremendous opportunity during a repaving project to put a bike lane in. It reduces costs, it speeds up the delivery of the bike facility that the city wants to build anyway. And I know there's resistance. I know there's a lot of challenges to get this done, but please honor the will of the people of Bremerton over all the years and all these plans, and encourage you to build those bike lanes. Thank you.
But you hand it to, a staff president, thank you. And thank you for your comments. All right, we'll keep going in the room here. Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Avon Fry. I live on Naval Avenue with my husband and my two kids, and I'm also here in support of safe streets. I have a master's degree in environmental policy, and I work for the Department of Health. And I'm also currently earning a degree in climate change and health from the Yale School of Public Health. And believe it or not, one of the things we talk about a lot in the climate change and health field is complete streets policies. And that is because complete streets policies have an enormous number of what we call co-benefits, which is to say when you implement a policy to solve one problem, it actually has all these other knock-on benefits that weren't originally included. So complete streets, for instance, might be implemented to slow down traffic and prevent traffic fatalities. But it turns out that doing this also reduces greenhouse gas emissions, which is good for everybody. It also cleans up the air, which is great for everybody, but especially for low-income communities that tend to have more impacts from dirty air. This will also encourage transit and active transportation, which are important in a society where so many people suffer from obesity. It also enables interactions among neighbors and promotes community, which I think is really important in a society that has a loneliness epidemic. Yeah, on a personal note, I bike my kid to school every day along Naval Avenue, and I've actually had interactions where a car pulled up next to me at a stoplight and said, "What are you doing here? Get off the road. This is illegal." Absolutely, yeah. And I hope we can agree that's absurd, but it's also not hard to imagine why she might think that, since there's no indication anywhere up and down that road that drivers are in fact required to share it with bikes and pedestrians and anybody else who wants to use it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. I'll just note the city did adopt the complete streets ordinance in 2018, and there is a complete streets committee, just to put that out there. All right, yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Jane Rebelowski. I'm a longtime Bremerton resident. I fully support getting something done on 6th Street sooner rather than later. I mean, there's not one safe road east-west to take people from West Bremerton all the way over to Manette. And about a week or so ago, I went on a community ride and I was trying to cycle down 13th Street. Like most people, like the average not well-skilled bike rider, I tried to stay near the curb. The pavement's in terrible shape. There's no way to go. Then when we went over to Manette, because we had young children with us riding on bikes, we took the shared use path, which is very difficult to get on and off of on the Manette side. I thought I broke my arm. I felt so bad. And this is 10-day-old bruises. We can't just wait for grants. I mean, we're spending $400,000 of city money to help cars go faster on Wheaton Way. And yet we're not spending money to do simple, small projects that make a huge difference to the community. And it's time to get away from just doing big projects. I mean, I lived in Manette, and over 20 years ago, we asked for ADA ramps. Well, they're getting put in now. So, I mean, you can't wait to do everything on a big, huge scale. We have to start doing community scaled projects that can be turned over quickly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, please go ahead.
Well,
Oh, yes, yeah, you're good to go. Thank you.
All right. My name is Kevin Naughton. I'm a 10-year resident now of Bremerton. I've been homeless for the past 5 years here, and I am a part of that 6th Street from 6th Street to the zone at Martin Luther King Boulevard zone behind Salvation Army. And I ended up having to move myself farther away because there's so many things going on that are negative, and a lot of people we've had over 5 deaths this past month. And it's getting to the point where, you know, every day we're having police or we're having ambulances, we're having a lot of issues and we're a lot of scared. And since Salvation Army closed, now we're finding out that the Georgia House, which is the female house for homeless shelter, is just closed their doors without notice. Now we have the Kids Help Rescue Mission is closing their doors in less than 90 days. So all shelters here in Kitsap, for some reason, are closing all their doors. And that means that there's going to be another about 300 more people on the streets of Bremerton. And we already have about 300 that you guys don't even realize. I'm actually living in a tent on Broadway behind Burger King. And I got a citation from the police saying that I could not be there because I'm a nuisance declared on vegetation. And yet the cars are parked on the sidewalk there, which is also illegal to impede on a sidewalk. I'm on the burn between the sidewalk and the street. And they came and took my tent and threw it in the street and told me that I had 30 seconds to vacate or else they were going to arrest me. Now, they told me I could go down to Martin Luther King Boulevard and be with the rest of the homeless people where they deserve to be. That I don't think is right. So if you're going to tell me, and they also said to come to you guys, because this is the information they gave me, and it says to go to you guys, that actually you guys have to make the decision to remove my tent from where it's at. And it states it right in this city pamphlet. So, you know, the police doing that and then not harassing the other people on the burn it's getting ridiculous. I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol. I am trying to stay away from the negativity that's going on. And the only way I can do that is by moving myself, you know, a few blocks away. They all don't want it in their backyard though. And I get it, but there's nowhere else for us to go at this moment. The city's working with me. I am working with them. We're trying to find a place for me to go. In the meantime, this is where even Salvation Army said, that's where you need to go.
So sorry, just 10 more seconds.
Hmm?
Just 10 seconds left. So, I'm sorry, there's only 3 minutes total. so,
Okay.
Yeah, just a warning.
So I have this to show you guys, please, because it's ridiculous. You're going to arrest homeless people.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and in relaying your situation. The council sets broad policy. We don't manage day-to-day activities such as the situation you faced. But I suggest talking with the administration for day-to-day actions.
President
you.
Coughlin.
Okay, next up.
President Coughlin.
No, I'm sorry, it's not in order. Okay, anyone else for public recognition? Let's check if anyone online. Okay, I'll go one more in the room here, then go to online. Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening, council and mayor and city staff. Appreciate this opportunity. I'm Jim Klein. I'm now officially the vice president of the Charleston Business District. And now it's going to cost me a lot of money to thank all those people for applauding. But I'm excited because we made great progress. You probably have seen the original plan that is called the 287-page, not plan, but it's a planning study. And as a group, we've come together, identified the barriers for revitalization of the Charleston district, and in the last year and a half, really made significant progress. So what happens now? Now, we just submitted a request for budgeting for 2024 and had a list of projects that were included.
Apologies, not sure what's going on there.
It's not me. Okay.
You got 2 minutes left, so you're good.
Okay. And I'm sure that first of all, if somebody came to me and said, hey, we want to spend some money, I'd want to know where that money is going. And you may have questions. I've certainly partnered with Michael Goodnow and talked to Anna and Jeff about.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Klein. Can you hold on a second? Can I ask anyone in the audience having conversations to please either go outside the room and have them or just wait until later in the meeting? Thank you. All right, please go ahead, Mr. Klein, and I'll make sure your time gets back on the clock.
Okay, so we put together a plan, and we're not asking for a blank check. We're asking for a plan to work together to develop funding for the projects that we have listed. And so if you have questions, we're available at any point in time. Certainly, Mr. Goodnow has done a great job, and he can answer them, as can I. But in addition, right now, what do we do next? And what we need to do is come up with those questions and figure out what the answers are so that we can move forward together between the city and the Charleston Business District. So again, it's not a blank check. We're asking for reasonable things. And here's an example. The streetscape equipment that exists in Quincy Square and in Manette, things like planters, the street lights could be repurposed and put down into the Charleston district. That's a simple example, and there's many more. So the other part of that funding is we need help. It's been a really interesting adventure to kind of work our way through the last year and a half. But when it comes to the funding, plain and simple, you guys are the experts, or the city auditor or whoever. But if you'll let us work together with that, we'll come up with a reasonable plan to move forward, because again, Charleston, the Callow area is the other downtown, or the other entrance to Bremerton's second downtown. So I just want to wrap up and say that yes, Charleston absolutely supports streeteries and safe streets. And Callow would be a great example for putting in some of the things like bike lanes and crosswalks. That would be a great example for the whole community. And it looks to me like there's a lot of people here who love Bremerton. I would encourage them to come down to
Sorry, I'll
Callow.
have to stop you there to be fair.
And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Klein. I know the council has in its goals and priorities to support the Charleston area, so look forward to continuing that discussion throughout the year as we head into budget season. All right, let's go online for public recognition. We'll start with Mary Lou Long. Yes, please go ahead, Ms. Long. You should be able to unmute now.
Yes, I'm Mary Lou Long, and I just wanted to say the Pledge of Allegiance once again. So if anyone would like to stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since you're talking about streets and paths and bicycle paths, there's a segment, I've been here in Bremerton for over 50 years. There's a segment between 26th Street all the way to Kitsap Way that has no sidewalk, continual sidewalk. And there are children that go to school and catch school buses there, and they have to stand just in front of a ditch. And I just find it very sad that the city has not taken it in its powers to put one sidewalk on that stretch for the safety of pedestrians. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next up, we'll go to Joe Walter. Please go ahead, Ms. Walter, if you can hear me.
Hi, thank you. Joe Walter, Navy Yard City. I didn't plan to speak tonight yet. Hearing from Allison and I'm sorry, I missed the name of the man who was charged with being a nuisance on vegetation. I just feel like I have to speak up in support of boy, the community. Thank you to that gentleman for showing a face of our neighbors who are homeless that folks don't get a chance to hear from them at council meetings, to understand what it is they're up against and have a chance to relate to them. 5 deaths in a month. I didn't know about that. I mean, what are we doing? These are, our most vulnerable people, and they're not safe there. What are we doing? And we have a meeting coming up. 2 council members have been invited, or will be if you haven't been yet. We're still looking at toilet facilities down there. Allison is right. They're not going away. It's not going to change. I don't know, a town hall meeting? I don't know. Urban rest stop? Yes, please. If people don't know what that is, there are facilities for showering and laundry at the Salvation Army. It is not satisfying all of the needs in the community, so let's look at an urban rest stop. Oh boy, I'm kind of messy right now. I'm just emotional at hearing these folks speak up, and I need to speak up too. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. I will see if there's anybody else for public recognition. All right, seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public recognition and move on to item 6A, which is an information only item. Please know that the council will not be taking action on this item tonight, but following the presentation, we will open up for public comment, followed by council discussion and questions. With that, I welcome Public Works Director Tom Nucky to provide a briefing on the mayor and administration's recent actions and decisions regarding streeteries. Please take it away, Mr. Nucky.
Good evening. I got a PowerPoint, so Hans, you could put it up. So, slide. Really the goal of the presentation now is just kind of lead council and the public through the thought process that led to the conclusion to eliminate the streetery program. Slide, please. So I wanted to start out by going through the background and just let you know that prior to COVID-19, there were a handful of cities nationally. Go back, Hans, please. Okay. That operated streeteries, and presumably they operated them following NACTO guidance, and NACTO stands for the National Association of City Transportation Officials. So they had guidance that's been out for a while regarding parklets, but then as the COVID-19 pandemic started, there were restrictions on business operations, and so NACTO came out with different guidance specific to the pandemic, and it was titled Streets for Pandemic Response and Recovery. And it included specific guidance on on-street dining because you couldn't go into businesses. And so, like many cities nationally, and of course in the state, the city through an emergency executive order in the middle of July of 2020 adopted a policy to allow that operation. And so initially 6 businesses operated dining in the right of way. By the first of the year, 2 had closed. In January of this year, we received significant complaints from one business that was also downtown, and discussed termination of that permit for operations at that facility. And so by February, there's only been 3 that remain. Slide, please. So I think it's fair to say that dining in the right of ways received mixed reviews. When they're used, they're popular. When they're not used, we get a lot of negative complaints, especially from adjacent businesses. And they're generally, more often than not, they're not used. So as the pandemic came to conclusion last year, we knew that there was a goal to adopt a streetery policy, which is different from dining in the right of way, the COVID-related policy. And so we began gathering information, trying to understand issues and concerns in order to develop a streetery policy. And we weren't done with that. We'd barely gotten going on it by the time the emergency officially ended in October, And so we contacted the 3 businesses, actually it was 4 businesses at that time, and advised them that we would continue their current permits, which were no cost. They were type A right-of-way permits. Type A permits were provided. They can be rescinded quickly. And again, there are no cost permits. And we told those businesses that we would allow them to continue under their current operations until we put a new policy in place, at which time, if they wish to continue, they'd have to abide by the new policy. Slide, please. So that was in October. In November, we received audit findings from the Department of Revenue. Back, please. We received audit findings from the Department of Revenue, and were notified that we weren't compliant with collecting a leasehold excise tax. And so that's a tax that's paid by a private entity for the beneficial use of the right of way in this case. And it's about $100. But in order to address the audit issue, we had to follow our type C right-of-way, long-term right-of-way permit procedures in order to calculate what the cost of the leasehold excise tax would be, and then charge the businesses that tax so that we could turn around and pay that to the Department of Revenue. So we did that in November, and what we found out was that effectively issued right-of-way permits for the businesses that had paid those taxes. Because we weren't following, it was unintended to issue the type C right-of-way permits, but we did. And we didn't realize that until that was brought up at the May 17th council meeting, and we went back through and tried to figure out, okay, well, where are we and what do we do? And that's what we did. So, so the current status is that in looking into a policy regarding streeteries, we came to the conclusion that the program should end. But there are entities, a couple businesses that have current permits. And so the decision was made to continue the program until those permits expire in the spring of next year and then terminate the program. Slide, please. Okay, so we have 3 businesses currently that are operating dining in the right of way, and their photos are up here. And again, this this doesn't follow the streetery guidance that exists, but it does follow the pandemic specific guidance from the National Association of City Transportation Officials. And they're actually quite a bit different. Go ahead, Hans. Okay, so we did not spend hundreds of hours going through, we spent a lot of time to identify all the issues. We did not spend the time necessary to identify recommendations for each of those issues. We didn't have open houses, public meetings. We didn't engage the council. We didn't go out to the businesses that were operating and ask for their input on the host of issues. And the reason that we didn't was because you go right to the bottom lines. There are 2 issues that we felt we couldn't get past, and those are regulatory issues and safety issues. But I just want to, again, I want to let you know the issues that would have to be addressed in a policy and the thought process that we went through in trying to get our arms wrapped around this issue. So the first one is ADA accessibility. So streeteries would need to be 100% ADA accessible, and currently they're not. And there are a lot of issues that are involved in making those ADA accessible that take up a lot of real estate. For example, ramps can have a maximum slope of 12:1. So if you have to, if you've got a 6-foot curb and you try to ramp down from that, you're going to have a 6-foot ramp, and you're going to have a turning area at the bottom for a wheelchair that's about 5-foot diameter. You're going to have a space at the top. There are a lot of issues associated with ADA accessibility with the walkways and things like that that are challenging, and they're expensive. The second one is limited locations. So not every area, not every business would be eligible for a formal streetery. And that would result in a lack of equity. That is an issue that we'd have to work our way through. Not the reason candidates aren't businesses aren't all candidates is because we'd have to consider catch basin locations, sign obstructions, you know, the speed on the streets, the number of streeteries per block. I think it's the city of Seattle and their policy. It might be San Francisco. I can't remember which. I think it's Seattle though. They allow a maximum of 2 streeteries per block and only 1 per side of a street. So that's what they thought was appropriate. For Bremerton, maybe it would be different. I don't know, but it would take a lot of interaction to try to figure out what that would consist of, what is fair, not only to the businesses wishing to operate the streeteries, but all the adjacent businesses that are impacted as well, right? Minimum usage would have to be established. There was one business downtown that was only open 3 days a week for a few hours a day. That we felt was not, that low usage didn't provide public benefit. If you are going to have a streetery in the right of way, occupying the right of way 12 months out of the year, and you're going to try to have a reasonable amount of usage, then that leads you into things like roof structures, heat, lights, those sorts of things, which bring in, you know, building department review, fire department review for a program that doesn't exist. It would take a lot of time in coordinating with those other departments in order to put together the policy that would make sense, you know, for the city, right? In parking impacts on other businesses. Our on-street parking is very well utilized. It provides a public benefit, particularly to the adjacent businesses. And we have received strong negative feedback from the public, especially from the adjacent businesses, when the on-street parking has been occupied and then unused. Here's another issue. The streeteries are in the right of way. It's not private property. They need to remain open to the public during non-business hours. And so if you take a look at the parklet guidance from the city of Seattle, they actually put a sign on the side of the streetery. They identify the business hours and they require the business to encourage public access during non-business hours. Okay, so and that's not how that's being managed currently. Also, the police can't enforce private property rights on streeteries. So just more issues that would need to be resolved in order to move a program forward. Also, streeteries would necessarily impact stormwater and road maintenance. If you take a look at the guidance from NACDO on a true streetery, they don't occupy the street per se. They're on platforms in areas with curbs because there's no steps associated with that. It's a hard requirement both in NACDO, City of Seattle. When you do that, you have an area below a platform that is going to gather dust, debris, food scraps, maybe be an attraction for vermin. It's an obstruction that wouldn't allow us to sweep our streets, which is required by our NPDES stormwater permit. It's just another issue that would have to be addressed. Road maintenance, and when I say road maintenance, really I'm thinking about snow plows. When you push a snow plow through the street, you push a heavy weight of snow, streeteries would interfere with that. Also, the issue of charging market rate for lost parking would have to be considered. As I mentioned previously, the Department of Revenue requires us to collect leasehold excise tax based on the value of the parking. And so what we charge for our Type C long-term right-of-way permits is we charge an administrative fee. We charge a $345 initial registration fee, application fee. And then for renewal, we charge $86, right? And then in addition to that, what we do is we calculate the value of the property that's occupied. We don't charge that value. What we charge is the tax on that value and then turn around and pass that along to the Department of Revenue. But because this siting would provide a benefit to one business at the detriment of another, a consideration would be whether market rate should be charged for the parking. We calculated that. That's about $2,700 per parking space per year for Bremerton. Again, just a consideration, not something that we would be recommending. So those are the issues. We're really, now let me get into the meat of the issue. And then what led us to believe that, that this program to go away. Slide, please. Okay, so we're required by law, by RCW and WAC, to follow guidance from the Federal Highway Administration in the designing of the streets. And that really comes from two different sources. Primarily, there's others, but primarily it's the METCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And I've listed up there what that generally covers. Then also AASHTO, the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, has a policy on geometric design of streets and highways, and that addresses things like clear distance, those sorts of issues. So we're required by law to comply with that. NACTO, the National Association of City Transportation Officials, is non-regulatory. It's not adopted by federal highways, but it provides guidance and recommendations on improvements in different areas. As an example, when we implement green paint on roadways, we try to keep an eye on NACTO guidance because it's excellent. It's very good guidance, right? But when there's a conflict, slide please, when there's a conflict between NACTO and federal highways, we need to make sure that we're also following federal highways guidance. Slide please. And so parklets and streeteries follow NACTO guidance. Again, it's not adopted by federal highways. The METCD and AASHTO provide guidance that directly conflicts with NACTO guidance. So AASHTO establishes lateral clearance from the traveled way, which you're not supposed to have obstructions within. And the streeteries, as they're laid out in NACTO, they violate that guidance, okay? And so in order to comply with the federal guidance and address that issue, we would have to push from the edge of the traveled way a clear space of about 2 feet, then install jersey barriers, not only paralleling the streetery. Again, we're following federal highways guidance. The closest thing that we can relate to that is work zone traffic control, right? And so that's we're thinking, okay, well, that's what we'd have to do. So you put a jersey barrier in, not only along the face of the side of the streetery, but also a taper 40 feet upstream, up traffic stream, which would occupy 2 additional parking spaces in order to comply with federal highways guidance. At the end of the day, what you would have is compliance with both federal highways and NACTO for a streetery. Would be a very expensive streetery. It would have traffic barriers with long tapers. You'd have high cost, I have more information on cost in a minute, and other features that would be high cost, limit the additional seating, and you'd have little public benefit for this big obstruction in order to move the program forward. Okay, so that's the regulatory issues, but that's really not the significant one. Slide, please. And really the significant, okay, I'm sorry. So here's some more information regarding the streeteries from the Seattle Department of Transportation. Kind of hard to read, but in providing, and this is not from us, this is from the Seattle DOT based on their experience. Oh, thanks. They have 5 different costs identified for compliance with the NACTO guidance, and this is just the NACTO guidance. This isn't the federal highways guidance, but their costs range, construction costs, between $17,000 and $90,000 to construct a streetery compliant with NACTO guidance. Zoom back out if you would. There's some notes on the side that I wanted to show. So compliance with NACTO guidance results in high construction costs. And then, as I said previously, compliance with federal highways guidance results in a significant right-of-way impact. And then one thing that's very interesting is that the city of Seattle requires the entire facility be fully removable with 30 days notice. So, and again, that's from Seattle. Okay, go ahead, Hans, next slide. Okay, safety. And Kylie, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about safety before I got into this.
Sure. So while Director Nucky talks about the standards, where those come into safety is that the standards are designed to, or promulgated to keep people safe in the design of roads, streets, structures that abut them. Whenever safety is compromised, that can be what leads to liability for the city. Streeteries are relatively new. There have obviously been sidewalk cafes around for a really long time. But streeteries where there's an area of a parking spot used for a place for people to sit and relax, that is a fairly new thing. And there's not any cases that I was able to find in the time I could spend on finding them that address streeteries specifically. However, the city has had a lawsuit filed against the city related to a bus stop sighting, which is in some ways similar. Bus stops have been around a long time, and there are a lot of cases about citing those. One of the cases that I came across in defending the city against the bus stop location case that we had involved the city of Seattle and King County and the location of a bus stop. It is in that case, and I won't get into the procedural posture. It's not really relevant to this discussion. But one of the things that the court focused on was the evidence presented by the plaintiff's expert witnesses. In that case, the bus stop was oriented with the backs of people waiting against the lane of travel. And in a tragic incident where a car left the roadway and crashed into that. And I believe it was actually the family of the person was suing the city. And so one of the factors that the judge looked at in that case or was swayed by was that even though the county in that case was said had complied with the standards, that the orientation of it being turned around backs to traffic made it even more dangerous. And that it when people are sitting alongside of a road, they are aware of surroundings and facing out. In this case, they were facing in and have been somewhat enclosed and invited to relax, take a load off, and let their guard down. And so that was really the case that I thought was most on point to what we have going on with the streetery. Combining that with the situation where we would be in if we were not in compliance with federal standards for citing a structure in the traveled way, it would make this situation certainly one which could expose the city to liability. And like I say, I mean, liability is a secondary concern. It is a safety issue that's the primary concern.
Thank you. And that just goes to the first bullet. I mean, these streeteries, they encourage people to have a beer, relax, ignore traffic, and do that.
Please
Which
order
is
in the
generally a good thing, but it's not great within this zone, right, adjacent to traffic. Anyway, so I've got some examples of issues that resulted. So here's a link. There was in this incident, there was an individual in New York City that was evading police, zero regard for public safety, zero, crashed into a number of vehicles, people diving out of the way, and he blew through a streeter and destroyed it. Next example. So here's another one. This is a night time thing where a vehicle crashed into a streetery and destroyed it. And no one was present at the time. That led to a concern about safety. And then this next one. So this is go ahead and start it. So this there's no audio here, but it's a report from a television article, television report regarding I think it's probably safety security cam video that shows a vehicle that is leaving the roadway, going through planters and packing people in a roadside dining environment where there's no appropriate safety barrier between the people that are dining and the roadway. So go to the next slide. So there's another one. There wasn't good video, but there was an incident that we saw where an elderly woman was trying to parallel park, lost control of her car, crashed through the sidewalk, and killed a person. Right. So that's why we're recommending that the streetery cease. It's not an appropriate use of the right of way. We have better alternatives, and we have them throughout the city, and we think that they're great. And those are sidewalk cafes. They exist at a few different locations, larger ones, Yoko, Horse and Cow. Also coffee shops, plenty of coffee shops that have tables with small chairs adjacent to them. Quincy Square is another great example of activation of the right of way. When we close a street to vehicles, we have safety bollards that are incorporated in the design. We're considering sidewalk cafes with the design. And it's just some examples of what we think the right approach is for outside dining, also in the right of way. Anyway, that's the last slide that I have, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Director Nucky. With that, we'll open up for public comment on this item. Similar to before, please line up in the room for the podium or raise your hand on Zoom to comment. Everyone.
I guess I'm starting this thing.
All right, yes, please go for it.
First, I want to note that it looks like most of those safety issues seems to be caused by bad drivers more than anything else. So just want to put that out there. So good evening, council. Good evening, public. My name is Jackson Pincus. I live on 8th and Naval. I'm the vice president and co-founder of Safe Streets Bremerton. We're now almost 200 strong and counting. So you will hear us and you will see us. I want to start just by saying that Bremertonians want to support local businesses. We want to enjoy our weather. We want to enjoy our downtowns. And yes, that does include Callow. We also don't want to be hit by a car any more than most drivers want to hit us. But the solution to this safety and access dilemma has to be centered on creating the best experience for people, not for cars. In 2023, to prioritize a minor piece of car access over actual people who spend money in our urban cores, it's not just a mistake, it's completely the opposite of what we should be doing. We're talking about unceremoniously ending a program which is extremely popular with both citizens and small business owners in order to regain less than half a dozen street parking spaces. This is silly on so many levels. To think that we need to preserve street parking anywhere in downtown where there are literally hundreds of garage and surface lot spots less than a block from anything in that area. And this is also, we're talking about 7 parking spots on what will soon be Quincy Square. We should be encouraging local businesses to take advantage of summer in Bremerton, to expand their footprint and make it easy for more people to patronize our local businesses, to help this city create vibrant, active, and exciting neighborhoods without much, if any, additional funding. Suffice it to say, I think we're over-regulating here. Bremerton already has the bones of a walking and biking paradise. I can attest to this, as I can't recall the last time I drove anywhere within our urbanized peninsula. And in fact, I walked 1.25 miles to get here today because I chose not to drive. Bremerton, we can do this, right? I believe this is when cities are at their best, when we choose our mode of transport rather than being forced into one option because of urban design. And the possibility of ending our outdoor dining program flies in the face of not only urban best practices, but also the simple ability to choose how we get around, and the ability of our small businesses to not just survive, but thrive. So at the end of the day, my comments, I guess, can be summed up as the following. People over cars, support local businesses, and give them the space they need to grow. They're the anchors of our community and should be treated as such. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Whichever one of you wants to jump up first. Perfect. All right. Remember, just please state your name for use in the meeting minutes. Thank you.
I am Juliette Johnson, Local Boys Tap Room, 4th Street. We have a streetery. As there's our lovely neighbor, Remedy. To appreciate the fact that I understand the city's concerns, your ADA concerns make no sense. You appreciate that when we originally got our permit to put a streetery outside, the health department came and said to us, this has to be ADA accessible. I had a curb, places outside. I bought a ramp. It's portable, be installed anytime somebody in a wheelchair needs to get down there, easy to do. That makes no sense to say it's not ADA accessible. There's a big enough space, everybody can turn around, just like my bathrooms, no different. In regards, oh gosh, so many things. If you want Bremerton to be a vibrant community where people want to come down, come to our tap room, go to Axonero, go to Remedy, walk around town, enjoy First Friday. You have to make it accessible to them. If I come downtown and I see streeteries, oh, well, what's that? Let's go see what's going on there. It makes the community safer. All of us safer. If you see a bunch of people outside in streeteries, you're not going to commit a crime. Just not. There's too many people there. And it makes people feel safe and want to be downtown. This is absolutely absurd to me. Absolutely absurd. You know, in regards to the Director of Public Works, we renewed our permits. You played hokey pokey and decided, oh, well, you can't do that. You said to me I couldn't appeal it. You didn't read your own code, which clearly stated I could appeal it, which I did. I've now paid $350 and didn't have to go through with the appeal because you decided, oh yeah, that was acting in bad faith. I want my $350 back. I want my streeteries. I want downtown Bremerton to be a walkable community. We have Quincy Square going in. I have 240 signatures from citizens from Seattle to Texas to Virginia. We are a military town who signed a petition saying, yeah, we love the outdoor space. We have 3 months worth of summer here. We want to be outside. You businesses who survived COVID, we pay our taxes. And you're taking away things that help our business. What does the city want from downtown? Do you want it to be parking? Then say that. Say, we don't want businesses. We want parking. And we won't renew our lease. You people have to decide what you want downtown to be. We have ships coming in from Seattle, docking here, cruise ships. We're coming down to see the Turner Joy, to enjoy our city. You decide if you want to let people enjoy our city or walk downtown and wonder why it's a ghost town. You need to decide as a city what you want this city to be. I invested in the city. I own a home here that I rent out. I pay taxes. I'm invested in the city. Your claims that it's too expensive, that's offensive. Tell me it's too expensive to build an outdoor area. That's offensive. I'm invested in my business. I'm invested in this city. And to tell me that was conversation I had with your Director of Public Works.
So sorry for one
when he
second.
called me.
Hans, do you have
So
the time we're going?
I'm done. I'm done. Y'all figure out what you want to do.
Just
Point of order.
your comments.
Point of order
Just- yeah,
before
point of order.
the director
And second, Director.
joins in, but can we confirm with the clerk and IT that the timer is being signaled to the chair? I kind of saw, I said, yeah, no,
Yeah, thanks,
nothing
Councilmember.
against the comment. I just want to make sure because we have a lot of people in the group.
Yeah.
That there's an actual signal that the chair is able to.
And
see.
apologies,
Thank you so much.
I have my own timer and it failed on that one, so the one incident. So my apologies there for my timer not going off. But yes, Director Nucky, if you want to respond.
Just one quick comment. So I checked with the project manager on this project and she indicated that she reached out. There were two people, two businesses that filed appeals and yeah, we absolutely wanted to fund the piece. There's no reason to. So.
And I'm so sorry. We can't have a two-way conversation. So.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Okay. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Yes, please go ahead to the podium.
Hello, I'm Erin Hale, the Executive Director of the Downtown Bremerton Association. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City officials. When you think of Downtown Bremerton, I want to inquire about your collective priorities. You've bestowed upon me the incredible opportunity to seek out Main Street accreditation for Downtown Bremerton, and I'd like to share a little bit about what that means. Main Street is more than a B&O tax incentive. It's more than tidied buildings and grant funding. Main Street is about the journey and not just the destination. Main Street is community. And community is about people. People are about connecting, especially in a post-pandemic world. We need gathering spaces to sit and converse and heal. If they're in the sunshine on a beautiful day, even better. We need to make people our priority. When you rose to the occasion of COVID and granted local boys in Remedy, for example, the opportunity to expand their spaces for the betterment of their businesses, something happened. When you walk down the street, there are people walking to and from. Navy Yard workers stopping to enjoy a refreshing beverage. There are eyes on the street. The streets feel electric and safe. I, as a woman, feel safe here. I could print out and present all of the studies conducted by Ivy League universities about the benefits of parklets and streeteries. In fact, I've shared quite a bit with you, including the culmination of research conducted by the Seattle Department of Transportation on the subject, as well as the importance of parklets and streeteries from a Main Street perspective, the very organization you've invested in by investing in me. There's a culture shift that needs to be adjusted within downtown. We must invest in people, people-friendly spaces, people-friendly opportunities for connection. We will never survive if we focus all of our energy on resources, on cars and how to avoid them. If we invest in people, more people will walk or ride their bikes. If we invest in people, more people will invest their time in opening businesses in town. If we invest in people, more people will want to spend their money here and promote the wonderful community we have. We, the Downtown Bremerton Association, and all of the businesses in this corridor know what we have. Do you? We're so close to Main Street becoming an actuality. We just need the mayor, Tom Nucky, City Council, and the planning department is led by Andrea Spencer on board. I ask for your innovation, your willingness to invite everyone to the table, and that people be the central to the core of your priorities. Thank you. And I want to make one note that in a meeting with the mayor and Chief Tom Wolf, that they kept referring to people talking about dangerous spaces in other places in conversations about Bremerton being unsafe. And they kind of made fun of the fact that people were talking about other spaces. And so I just want to point out that these examples in New York and all over the place that have nothing to do with Bremerton should be void from this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Danny Gray. I am the Secretary of the Downtown Bremerton Association, the Vice President of Collective Visions Gallery, and I work in workforce and economic development at Olympic College. I just want to point out that Hillsborough, Bellingham, Vancouver, and Seattle have successful parklet programs. There's no reason that we can't do that. Parklets increase community vitality and activity. They get people to stay downtown longer and interact with our businesses and their neighbors. It aligns with our goals to be a Washington State Main Street community. If this program does not exist already, why don't we build one? It's not worth relying on hypothetical situations in other places. And yes, cars are dangerous. So I agree. We need to decide what we want this city to be and build it.
Thank you for your comments. Let me look online to see if anybody online. All right, we're going to hand raise Mary Ann. Please go ahead.
Hi, I am Mary Ann Cecilia. My partner is Dave Dodge, and we own some property in the Callow area. And we are also members of the Charleston Business District Association. And we love Calla, we love Bremerton. And I fully agree with those other speakers that were before me that said, yes, we are not Seattle, we are not New York or any of these other cities. We are our own city. We are Bremerton, we are Charleston. And so what we need to do is figure out what we want to be and how we want to be able to support local businesses. The fear mongering about, oh, it's possible that somebody could, drive through an area is absolutely ridiculous. I am a therapist. I fully understand that people need connection. It is a terrible situation that we have been in where people don't even know how to connect anymore. It's felt throughout our whole community. So I'm hoping that our city council can figure out, instead of how all the reasons why we can't do something, how about how to make it work? How can we make this work? How can we make our city more accessible? Is it possible? Instead, maybe we need to not make that area with the parklets for cars. Maybe we need to close the whole thing off and use it for a walkable, completely walkable area, meaning no cars would be allowed. Put bollards in there. Let it be an actual walk-through area.
Sorry, there's some blocks on the, hold on. Okay, please continue.
Anyway, I'm simply wanting to support these local businesses with the streeteries. And I feel that we need to really get on board. The city needs to get on board and figure out how to be a part of the solution instead of pointing out all the problems and the reasons why we can't do something. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your comments. Anybody else online or in person? Yes, let's go in the room here.
I've been here in Bremerton for 14 years and Port Orchard for 20 years. This is the first time in the whole time I've lived here that people want to come downtown. I mean, we have the cruise ships. Everyone's mentioned the cruise ships. We have First Friday that's growing. Everyone's really trying to come here. People from Seattle are moving here. It's the first time that it looks like there's something that has like hope. And for so many years, we're just like this sea of parking lots. There's so many holes in downtown and around it. We have so much parking. So if we just want to address just the parking issue, besides the ridiculous examples of what could happen if a car ran into the streetery, there are lots. I mean, I just Googled it. There are 30 lots around here. I've lived here this whole time. There's never been a time where I couldn't find a parking spot. Why don't we block off the street, like she mentioned, to let people just walk around and support local businesses? What do we want to be? A sea of parking lots, or do we want to be something more vibrant? Thank you.
Point of information.
Thank you. Yes, point of information.
I'd just like to point out to the assembled that this was an administration decision.
And
As
to
you
me,
heard
that's
Director Nucky say, he had
Councilmember
failed to
Mockler.
loop council in on
Councilmember
this.
Mockler.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Thank you. That's comments to me. Thank you. Okay, please go in the room here.
My name is Vincent Chow. I moved here from Seattle to the city of Bremerton about 5 years ago. I've lived in District 4 near Our Lady Star of the Sea. I haven't lived here for that long, but I've seen how downtown Bremerton has changed, how it's improved. And one of those improvements was the streeteries. I believe it contributes to the walkability of the city, contributes to a sense of community, and it brings people out into the city. I spent plenty of time with coworkers, friends, and family in the streeteries. I've walked by friends in the streetery on the way home from a game in Seattle. I've stopped and hung out with them. I spent time in Bremerton. I actually felt like I live in a community. If the concern truly is safety, then we should make the city safer for pedestrians, safer for bikers, not easier for cars. I walk to work. I walk to downtown Bremerton. I walk to the Charleston district. You know what I noticed? How much of our city is parking lot, like others I've mentioned. How safe our city is for pedestrians. Cars speed down 6 all the time. They speed down Burwell and run through lights. Someone was hit by a car speeding down 6 near my house 1 or 2 years ago. They were hospitalized. I agree that we should be safe. We should mitigate the hazards, not just say it's too hard and get rid of the streeteries. Cars are the threat to safety, not the streeteries. So let's figure out a plan.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Allison. I own Remedy. I just want to just reiterate what everyone's saying here, but also point out this is a room full of very passionate Bremerton lovers and really smart people. And we all have ideas. Every single issue that was on those PowerPoint slides, just off the top of my head, I could come up with solutions. So like, let's bring us to the table. Like, we are all committed to this city. We all have ideas. We're smart. Bring us in on this conversation before just making that decision. Thank you.
Yes, please go ahead. And thank you for your comments.
Hey, I'm Ryan Edwards. I am a new resident here in Bremerton, Washington. Just moved in pretty recently. It is a place I've wanted to live the last 7 years. Very, very proud to be living here now. And I can say my second day in Bremerton, Washington, those streeteries brought me out to the street to look for connection in the community, a community that I'm very proud to be a part of. So I would love to see that continue. And I would not mind walking a block or two to have Main Street closed off and be able to utilize those local businesses as I've seen them so wonderfully embraced while I've lived here so far.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else for comment on this issue, either online or in person? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to Joe Walter online. So sorry.
I just want to add a brief comment. Joe Walter, Navy Yard City. I'm not there, and I want to just be part and be recognized as part of this community of passionate Bremerton lovers who supports streeteries and the whole, and parklets and the whole culture around that and what that means for us. And I heard a round of applause when someone suggested closing off, more streets to cars, and I couldn't be there to applaud, but I can do this. Thank you. That's it.
Well, thank you so much. All right, now back in the room.
Hi, for over 30 years, I was a public works inspector in City of Bellevue, City of Bremerton, City of Upland. I forget where else. Anyway, the rules are all great, but they're meant more for highways, arterials. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think that expensive compass rose that they built in the middle of Park and 4th Street meets all of FHWA rules. Certainly doesn't meet all the ADA rules. So, I mean, exceptions can be made. And I think if maybe if they're only really using them for 3 or 4 months a year, then they move all their material to a storage area and we can sweep the street then. But I don't see any reason why we have to. And I understand that it wasn't council's edict to do this, that it came in a different place. And I'm sure it's meant well, but I think we need to recognize this is 2023 and we can do things with a little more imagination. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, please go ahead.
I originally did not support the streeteries because of the loss of parking, but I have emphatically changed my mind. I am 100% in favor of us reconfiguring 4th Street, that block, to resemble Quincy Square with plenty of angle parking and plenty of room for the streeteries and one-way traffic. It would meet all the safety and accessibility requirements. It would contribute to our growing vital downtown tourist attraction business district. It's money well spent, and it would increase the parking rather than decrease it.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, got one more in the room here.
Hello, my name is Tyler Schultz. I moved to Bremerton coming on 5 years ago. And one of the things I appreciate about the downtown area is the growing vibrancy, and I definitely see the streeteries as part of it. I also recognize that there are regulations. We have to figure out how to do things correctly and not create a bunch of trouble for the city. And as I think about the area where the streeteries are right now, I can imagine one of the concerns is that there's at least one private parking lot there. So I would speak out in favor of perhaps turning it into a one-way street, narrow it down, and there's still access there. There's still parking there, and it likely makes the safety concerns a lot easier because the downtown area there should be for people to be on the streets, to access the businesses, to gather together and be part of the community in a real way, and prioritizing the cars being able to travel through there. Like we got plenty of space for the cars to move through. So I appreciate trying to come up with solutions to preserve the streeteries and the growing vibrancy in the area. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. We'll continue in the room.
My name is Rachel Munson. I have lived in Bremerton for about 36 years. I live in Union Hill. And I have two things. There was a comment made that said that there are certain businesses downtown that have sidewalk cafes that works. Why can't we just expand the sidewalks to accommodate these new streeters? I mean, if sidewalks, that's all it takes is sidewalk. Expand the
I'm so
sidewalks.
sorry to ask you to speak towards the mic so it can be
Oh,
picked up
sorry.
online.
Expand the sidewalks. If it works for Yoko and Axe and Arrow and the Horse and Cow or whatever the other organization, company, business is down there, why can't on the other side of the street? Why can't we expand the sidewalks? That seems like a very simple solution. And maybe that would require the one-way streets like other people are talking about. And I'm supposed to ask, was the planning department with no less than 2 master's degrees in urban planning included in this discussion?
Your comments. Anyone else online or in person? All right. I will, if the administration wants to answer that question, they have the opportunity. I think it was, the question was whether the planning department was involved in this decision.
No, the planning department wasn't. It was fully in the right of way. And I guess maybe I wasn't clear though when I was talking about the sidewalk cafes. Those are great. I mean, I think that other businesses, it would be great if more businesses adopted that, and where there's space available and the usage of sidewalk cafes in the city. I think it's a great way. It's a safe way to activate the right of way.
Thank you. All right, last call for public recognition. Please go ahead.
Jim Hill, I live in Bremerton. I just want to respond to that question. What you're talking about with the restrictions on the sidewalk cafe would take our business Remedy from 18 seats to 2, maybe 3.
Thank you. And so remind me if you spoke already on this topic. There's been a lot.
It's a question, if that's okay.
No, I'm so sorry, but to be fair, everyone gets one turn. But yeah, you're welcome to email it to City.Council Bremerton or the mayor. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, members of the council. My name is Dylan Mendenhall, and I live in East Bremerton. I want to tell you a little bit about what I love about Bremerton and how you can make our streets fun, inclusive, and safe places to be. My wife and I, we moved to Bremerton about 2 years ago, and one of the reasons, well, there are so many reasons. The sense of community here, the arts, the music, it's a fun place to walk around. And one of the things contributing to that are the streeteries. It gives downtown kind of like a street festival kind of vibe. One of our favorite things to do on the weekend is go to Local Boys. I hate to choose favorites, but Local Boys is my favorite bar that we have. My wife, Kate, she's more susceptible to long COVID. And this is one of the few places that we can go where she can be without a mask. We just have a good time. Yeah, it's just a pleasant outdoor space to be. And as a small business owner, it's obvious to me the benefits to our local economy that the streeters bring. Just using Local Boys as a small microcosm, I mean, that's got like close to double their capacity that they have. So yeah, so speaking more broadly, these streeteries contribute to having a safer street. They're inclusive spaces, and they make our streets feel safer to walk on it. You should just compare forth with what it feels like to walk on an empty block on 6th. So yeah, I would encourage the administration and the city council to avoid these false dichotomies of, oh, it's a streetery versus cars, because cars, that's an issue of transportation. And there are other ways of addressing transportation issues besides cars. And similarly with safety issues, there's other ways of addressing safety issues besides just getting rid of streeteries. So I think it's great that there's an extension to this program, and that'll give some time to engage with some of these perhaps legitimate issues, and maybe ignore some of the non-issues that were brought up earlier today. Yeah, so I just encourage the city to continue to support our small businesses and contribute to us having a vibrant downtown scene. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Last call for anyone who hasn't spoken yet. Okay.
Hello, my name is Kel Smansky. I live in the Union Hill neighborhood. Just wanted to quick voice my support to keep streeters around. I don't need to repeat everything we've already said. As much as the videos would make you believe there's going to be a car blasting through here voicing its support to get rid of it. Cars don't vote, we do. There's a quick, I just want to talk about one little thing. There's this economic principle called reduced demand. If it's like the movie Field of Dreams, if we build it, they will come. So if we have smaller streets, it's less easy to drive. People aren't going to do it. If we have more streeteries, we're going to see more people downtown. We're going to see more a vibrant place to live and walk around. That's
Thank you. Anyone else online, Hans? Just got to check. Be fair. Going once, going twice. Okay, seeing and hearing no more public comment. I'll close public comment there, and then we'll go to the council for questions and comments. I think council is trying to keep it no more 3 to 5 minutes each. Meeting's going long, and then we'll take a break, a recess in the meeting after that. Seeing Councilmember Dennehy's hand up first, please go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you so much for everybody that's come out. Obviously, this is an important issue to the community, and it's really encouraging to see everybody out here. So, you know, I'm going to begin my line of questioning. Hans, could you bring up the slide that Director Nucky started? I want to preface my questioning to both Director Nucky and Attorney Finnell that these folks are doing their job, right? It is their job to make sure that they protect the city from liability, and also we're receiving grant funds from the federal and state governments that we're in line with those guidelines. So I don't want there to be any understanding of ill will as I ask my questions. I just want to make sure that we're getting to some answers, because I think that there's some gray room in here and some wiggle room that I see. I also want to let the community know that it's my intent to, you know, the mayor has the purview of enforcing the laws on the books. It's City Council's purview to create those laws, and it is my intent to create an ordinance that would allow streeteries to continue. So if we could pull up the slide. I believe it's basically the reasons that and obstacles that we need to be considering, because there's two interests here, right? City liability, public safety, federal and state regulations. With basically what everybody in the audience has stated, we want a vibrant downtown. The reason my husband and I moved to Bremerton was the potential that we saw in the downtown, and the ramp up that we saw before COVID of getting businesses into those empty business buildings, getting folks out, creating that community. It was stalled by COVID. COVID had this latent effect of actually creating these streeteries, which I think need to be continuing. So my first question for the administration, and I believe Director Nucky, you might be able to answer this, fully ADA accessible, if there was a platform the same size as the curb, would that be ADA accessible? Would that eliminate the need for the ramp?
Yeah, actually, if you take a look at the NACTO guidance, what it states is that it'd be curbless, basically. So you build a platform from the curb straight out, level platform.
Great, thank
So
you.
that would generally. take
I'm going to skip over limited locations. I don't necessarily see that as a negative. The minimum usage must be established. Can you remind me what your point was?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So there was one business, these are the results, some of them, of complaints that we received during this program, right?
Sure.
And so there was one business in particular that was open 3 days a week. And you know, the adjacent businesses were very upset.
So
with that.
business complaints about
And
parking.
so I don't
that's-
know if the right answer is 5 days, 4 days.
Sure. So
but
we're
it's
balancing adjacent business concerns and fairness around parking, around community needs. So
most
the next,
beneficial use of it.
great, thank you. So given that the area is row, it must be open to the public during non-business hours. I actually see that as a positive. I'm assuming that the businesses also see that as a positive and wouldn't mind folks, you know, grabbing a burrito from El Balcón and sitting in their space when they're not open. So I don't really see that as an issue. And I wouldn't expect the business owners to want to enforce private property rights and have our police trespass. That's an assumption that I'm making. Streeteries can impact stormwater and road maintenance. I understand that. I think that making things movable and not permanent addresses that. Charging market rate for lots of parking should be considered. I think that that's a consideration, again, of City Council. And I think the benefit from a policy standpoint of encouraging the economic activity that's actually going to be going on in downtown would far outweigh, I'm not an economist, but I think it would far outweigh the lost parking that should be considered. And now I want to move on to the major concerns, which are major concerns. And I don't want to, underlie those. So could you move on to the next one, please? So Director Nucky, I'm going to ask you about regulatory, and then I'll move on to Attorney Fennell for the torts liability. So the regulatory concern that I'm seeing, could you tell me the guidance from National Association of City Transportation officials? It's not regulatory. The Federal Highway Administration is regulatory. Can you tell us about the, the negative consequences if we veer from any of those regulations?
I'd really kind of like to defer. I mean, that's kind of a legal issue, a legal question, right? But I know that we have some coverage from liability when we comply with regulations, and we're kind of hanging out there when we're not.
Got you.
Right?
So kind of a tort liability of this stop sign was meant for people.
You probably understand that better than I do.
Sure. Thanks for that.
Sure.
So the one thing that I have a question about is, and I'm going to dig into these Federal Highway Administration regulations and fully understand them, because that's not my area of expertise. But it seems to me that the way most laws work and most tort laws work is there's a reasonable person standard of, the reasonableness of driving down a highway at 70 miles per hour is based on what that person is seeing, right? Like, this is a highway, you're moving quickly down it. The speed at which you're going and the care that that person takes is informed by their surroundings, which would be different in a tight urban area with speed limits of 25 miles an hour, being able to visually see people sitting, eating, things of that nature. Is there any specific regulations, that I see that there's the manual on uniform traffic control devices, which includes the installation of signs, pavement markings, signals, and work zone traffic control devices. Are there specific concerns that folks have that keeping these streeteries would not be in compliance with the manual on uniform traffic control devices?
So there's an issue, and let me just say that you're kind of getting beyond my expertise, right? I'm a civil engineer. I'm not a traffic engineer, and our traffic engineer was here, and he's here right now. So I can tell you as I is he? Oh, there he is. Okay. You want to come up? So I'll try to explain that, and then if I get something wrong, Shane can correct me. So there's a clear zone that that is supposed to exist adjacent to the traveled way, and it varies depending on vehicle speeds. And my understanding is that that clear zone ideally would be 10 feet wide in an area with the speed limit of 25 miles an hour. Now that's really difficult to attain in a built urban environment. I mean, in a rural environment, it can be attained. But the goal is to be a recovery area for vehicles if they leave the roadway. I believe that things get site specific when you look at a specific location. Curbs kind of adjust that area, and the distance that obstructions can exist can get down to a lower area. But what you're really required to do is maintain safety within that clear zone. Did I say that right? I said it right. And so when looking at the guidance from federal highways and trying to apply what we understand, guidance from WashDOT, from the MUTCD, through federal highways, what we think would work in order to provide that protection is to treat it really like a work zone, put a Jersey barrier adjacent with tapers and things like that.
I'm going to cut you off there and reclaim my time because I can kind of feel President Coughlin ready to cut me off. And I really do want to get to Attorney Fennell with questions. So my expertise, as you know, is not tort law. Could we move to the next slide, please? But I remembered some things from when I took tort law, and I'm trying to remember, I believe Washington State, along with a lot of jurisdictions, use the BPL analysis, the learned hand model of tort liability, whether or not the burden is larger or smaller than the probability of an accident happening and the actual liability that it causes. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so municipal liability for road design in Washington is my understanding in a 50-state comparison is a little bit unusual. And I would be happy to share with you the Brewster v. King County case. I think it would be a really helpful thing just to look at and how a road design case got litigated. It was a summary judgment dismissal that was overturned. So we don't go all the way to jury trial, but it is helpful to see how it works.
Sure.
And that's what I was referencing earlier. What happens, I guess you had a question earlier that I'll answer to if you want about the MUTCD. We've had an MUTCD case, and someone mentioned the Compass Rose. I think it was Mr. Obolowski. During that reason, we also had blue parking signs, if everyone remembers that. We got those for not being in compliance with the MUTCD. It does have a provision in the RCWs that if the state wanted to, they could have come in and changed those and then billed the city against our traffic funds for not having compliance signs. We ended up changing those on our own. But as far as like how I don't know if there's a similar standard in the RCWs for AASHTO. Where I've seen it happen is in road design, like the Brewster case, where a design doesn't meet the standard. Plaintiff's counsel hires a traffic expert who presents the standard, as well as human factors experts, in explaining how the failure to follow that standard is the reason.
Right. Kind of my point about a stop sign, right? If it's standard for a stop sign to be placed somewhere, the intent of the stop sign is to stop a moving vehicle. If the city failed putting up that stop sign and then there's an accident, it's almost pretty much slam dunk that would be liability. So why I'm asking these questions is moving towards a solution. The burden on the city that I'm seeing could possibly be putting up signs, putting up cement blockers. A large part of it may be requiring an indemnity insurance for those folks that actually want the streeteries to have that would indemnify us. I think I looked at an umbrella policy recently that was $4 million with Allstate, and it was $400. So I'm not going to take any more time, but as I chew over this, I do believe that there are gray areas that we can do both things, which is create a downtown community with outside resources that draws the public in, while also mitigating our liability if a suit ever was to come forward. And I look forward to working with those folks to create something that is helpful.
Councilmember Dennehy. Any other council members for questions or comment on this item? Yes, Councilmember Goodnow.
So overall support us finding a solution for this. This is something that actually was having conversations with our previous public works director to figure out ways to make this happen. We got this sort of unfortunate predicament because we don't really have a good program and it was under emergency provisions. But I completely agree with the sentiments that we have to, we have to design our downtown for people. And we've done some things in that realm. When we develop, we try to develop for people and not for cars and things like that. It had this, for instance, the thing I just want to make a partly a solution, but if we were doing the type of parklet streeteries where it's built up to meet the curb, then you just have to make sure you have your ADA clearance, which can give some space on the sidewalk. Some businesses don't quite have enough room to do a sidewalk cafe. And in the ones that I've studied too, sometimes you put the seating against the building and you divert the pedestrian traffic out onto a raised platform, that has, difference. So you're moving those maybe unaware folks who are enjoying, the beer. You're moving them closer to the building, further from moving traffic and things like that. Anyways, I think there's lots of solutions, and I think we now have time, and I hope that we can work with the community and get something done here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mockler.
Thanks, Mr. President. I would really like to salute the uppity women who brought this forward. I would like to support Aaron Hale. I would like to support Jerry. I'm sorry, I've messed up your last name once again. Avon Fry, the owners of the Remedy and the Lost Boys. The Lost Boys?
Local boys.
The local boys. I like the Lost Boys, but okay. So originally I was asked about this. I'm on Public Works and I asked the chair and it's like, nope, there's a liability. Did these uppity women say, oh, well, there's a liability? No, they stood up and analyzed stuff and organized, and I'm really proud of you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other council members for comment or questions? All right, seeing none, I'll go last here. I want to thank you, Director Nucky, for requesting to speak tonight and giving a thorough presentation and the opportunity to talk about this. Just some quick, kind of the only question I have is, were you able to reach out and talk to any of the other public works directors in the cities that have passed permanent ordinances regarding streeteries?
Oh, actually, we have a project manager who is working on this, and she's reached out to a few different jurisdictions. I know Edmonds canceled theirs. I think that really, I think the most fair thing to say about the program right now is that all jurisdictions are coming out of the pandemic and trying to really understand what the right answer is regarding the pandemic era streeteries, whether they should continue or not. And there are many jurisdictions that are eliminating them. There are probably some that are keeping them as is. So I don't really know the answer to that.
Okay, no, thank you.
Yeah.
He's got some final comments, and I do appreciate, the concerns outlined, but I do see other cities enacting this and finding solutions, and I think we can too. And hopefully, by talking to them and looking at their risk assessment and the ways they've been able to mitigate, I think would be really helpful. Just closing out, obviously, I think this whole issue could have been handled a lot better. There were some clerical errors, sounds like communication errors, a lot that might have been able to clear up ahead of time if the mayor met with the businesses as requested. And that's fine. I'm glad we're clearing it up now. But yeah, as said, this was a unilateral decision by the mayor, not by anyone in council without input. So I just want to thank everybody for speaking up on this issue. And to be frank, I don't agree with this decision. I don't think it was adequately flushed out with comment. I do appreciate safety concerns. We have to weigh risks in the city all the time in terms of what are potential lawsuits. My analogy is if you talk about IT, you can't get a computer virus if you never use your computer. But of course, if someone IT department told you that, don't use your computer, you won't get a virus, then clearly that's not a viable solution. There's different levels of risks to assume for every decision. And when I think about where these streeteries are, specifically 4th Street, and then looking potentially Callow and Charleston, these are not high-speed areas. I would have major concerns if we started to put a streetery on Warren Ave or 303, or Perry, necessarily around Perry Avenue, major corridors. But when I see these areas of the city that are already very pedestrian oriented, that have very slow traffic, I really value and appreciate our city's attorney's advice, because as Councilmember Denny, he pointed out, it is her job to point out the liability for the city and look for the city first. But I think I am seeing ways to mitigate this. And I know the businesses, from talking to them, they are willing to put in money for this. I don't think it's right to make decisions for them ahead of time on what they're willing or willing not to spend. I think we need to put up front, here are the ways to mitigate the risks. These are the costs. These are the costs of the permit, of the parking, of what's required to enact a structure that files guidelines, and then let them make the business decision whether that amount of money is worth it or not. And I agree, this really is a policy decision by the city charter. The council has the right to regulate public right-of-ways and their use. So this is something we could write an ordinance on. So I appreciate Councilmember Dennehy's volunteering to take the lead on that. We won't make any decisions tonight, but something I very much look forward to continuing to discuss in study session to see if we can write a ordinance to address this. And I do want to thank the administration for offering to refund those fees, for extending the program for a year and honoring those permits. That gives us time to flush this out, write a proper ordinance, get proper feedback, and address the risks and mitigation. All right, and with that, we will close out this item, and I'm going to call a 10-minute recess since we're getting late into the evening. So council will reconvene at 7:32. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
All right, it's 7:32. I call the council meeting back to order. We are moving on to item number 7, public hearing on ordinance number 5476 to vacate a portion of alley between Broadway and Chester Avenues. I'll note that the purpose of this public hearing is to accept public comment, and we will start with a presentation. Yes, please go ahead as I am getting back to work.
All right. Good evening, City Council and President Coughlin. Glad to be here. My name is Shane Weber. I'm Engineering Manager for Transportation for the City of Bremerton, and I got a presentation. Okay. All right. That's up on the screen there. So this item tonight is an alley vacation that is between Broadway and Chester Avenues, and it's public hearing. And on the screen up there, you can see the alley location that's indicated by a star just to the south of Olympic College, to the west of Warren Avenue, and it's actually between 11th and 13th Streets. And so the city received a petition from King's Homes LLC to vacate a portion of alleyway that I just described. Hans? Okay, so this is an aerial view of the alley location. As I mentioned before, it's between 11th and 13th Streets. You can't see 11th Street on this exhibit here, but it's to the south or down below on the screen. And the alleyway runs between Chester Avenue and Broadway Avenue, and it's a 5-foot alleyway. And King's Homes LLC, the petitioner, you can see there that they own both properties to the north and south, the majority of the frontage of this 5-foot alleyway. And what they're proposing is to vacate a portion of the alleyway, not the entire alleyway, from Chester Avenue to Broadway Avenue. And the limits of the alleyway vacation are up there in the white boxes. There's arrows that point to the location of where the alleyway is proposed to be vacated. King's Homes LLC is not the only owner that has frontage along this. There's one other owner there that's listed, Autumn Chase, and they own a small portion of frontage of this, approximately 15 feet. So next slide, Hans, please. And so just a little bit of details about this. So I talked about the vacation isn't all of it, between Chester and Broadway. It's a component, it's a portion of it that's indicated up there, 182.39 feet worth. The city requires when a private property owner requests the city to vacate property, there's a 2/3 requirement that there needs to be 2/3 of the property owners need to sign a petition for 2/3 of the frontage, front face frontage of the alley, or if it's a street being vacated. And since King's Homes is, they have a frontage of 95.88%, they're the only ones on the petition for this vacation. We staff looked into the feasibility of vacating this alleyway. It's a really small 5-foot alleyway. It was dedicated to the city in 1908. It's currently undeveloped. We don't have any utilities in this alleyway. There's no third-party utilities in the alleyway as well. It's not currently being used for any services. And we don't have any plans to use this alleyway in the future. Future city transportation plans. So we staff would recommend to go ahead and vacate this alleyway. It is class 3 right of way, which basically means that the city has an easement over the property since it was dedicated to us as part of a plat. We didn't purchase it in fee title, and so therefore, if it is vacated, there's no compensation that we would collect this alleyway. Next slide, please, Lons. And so this slide right here just shows basically the zoning of the properties in question to both the north and south of the alleyway. And the property zoning is zoned institutional, which basically means to support the college and what the college's needs. So And with that, we about to answer any questions that we have.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Weber, and thanks for sticking around late into the evening. The purpose of a public hearing is to accept public comment. So if any member of the public wishes to comment on this item, please either come to the podium in the room or raise your hand on Zoom. I'll just give it a few seconds here. No one on Zoom, correct? Okay, seeing and hearing nobody for public comment on this item, we'll close public comment and I'll go to the council for a motion. Councilman wish to make the motion. Councilmember Younger.
Move to pass ordinance number 5476 to vacate a portion of the alley between Broadway and Chester Avenues.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're open for discussion. Councilmember Younger. Okay. Councilmember wishing comments or questions? All right, seeing and hearing none, I will go ahead and just call for the question.
Councilmember Frye,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, council. Good evening.
Well, thank you.
Next on our agenda is item or general business, item 8A, amendment number 2 to the photo enforcement services agreement with Red Flex Traffic Systems, Inc. Presenter tonight is Contracts Administrator Melinda Monroe.
Welcome, Ms. Monroe, and thank you as well for sticking around late.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, council. As Angela just announced, I am presenting our ATEC camera system program contract renewal. I did answer, I think, a few questions from our study session, but I am just going to go through our presentation again, real brief. So some background, this program has been around since 2008, and we have 9 camera locations. Oh, can I move a slide back there? So. Just part of the meeting box. That was me. Not me. They've seen it. You have it in your packet. It's not super exciting. My one note on the background is that in October 2021, the city passed ordinance 5226, requiring that funds in excess of the operational cost would be deposited to the streets funds. And since that time, we have consolidated both the residential street and sidewalk fund and the Transcap fund. So that all just goes to the Transcap fund, which includes both, basically all street projects. Further, in May 2022, we issued a RFI and collected market data on these systems. The vendors in our market that were interested were Fair Mobility, or Red Flex Traffic Systems, Nova Global, and Genoptic. That produced some pricing data that gave us a decision point at that time, and we decided to enter into negotiations, which is an option we had, and start our renewal process. That has concluded. And there's 2 other points in our consideration in not moving forward with an RFP at this time. And that is that to issue an RFP, we would need to do 2 things. And actually, can you move on to, yep, that's the one. Thank you. 2 points. You would be required to issue a traffic safety analysis that would state that we need to improve our speed control or red light compliance. And we would need to issue a engineering study for placement of the new cameras. Both of these are required under RCW. And then if we decided to issue speed enforcement cameras, we would also have to complete an equity analysis in the locations that we put those. And that would, can run anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 per location. So there would be an additional cost of around $100,000 to move forward with that RFP. So for that reason, we are suggesting just a simple renewal at this time, 2 years with our current pricing structure. And that does give us time to complete these or budget for these analysis. And with that, I have for your consideration our renewal.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? None in the room, and we'll double check online. All right, seeing and hearing none, then we'll go to the council for a motion. Councilmember Mochler.
Thank you. Move to approve amendment number 2 to the photo enhancement services agreement with Red Flex Traffic Systems Incorporated and authorize the mayor to finance and execute the agreement with substantially the same terms and conditions as presented.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion, and a second, open for discussion. Councilmember Mochler, the floor is yours if you wish.
Thank you, Council President. When this was last debated before council, there was heated input from the public about all of the issues involving red light cameras. For me, the persuasive argument was that the red light cameras did not diminish the number of accidents. And councilors younger and good now, please correct me if I go off base, but it diminished the number of crushing accidents, of T-bone accidents, of major disability and death. So that I found very persuasive. My second point, however, is that Ordinance 5426 passed on July 7th, 2021, allows City Council to allocate the funds, the revenues from these red light cameras to specifically, for example, road preservation and maintenance, rather than to go directly into the Transportation Capital Fund. And I would like council to consider that at this time.
Thank you. Either Councilmember, sorry, I want to make sure Councilmember Chamberlain has your hand up, or.
I'm going to go ahead and defer to Councilor Fry, and then I'll go after.
Okay, Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain. I just want to clarify, because I know you talked, Ms. Monroe, about the allocation and the decision being made to kind of pool that with another fund. And I want to know who was that an administration decision? Was that a council decision to kind of put that all together?
I believe that actually occurred during our 2022 budget session, and it'd probably be a council decision.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification.
Councilmember Chamberlain.
Thank you. So I think my desire, and I might be the only one here, and that's okay, is that we have a study that's relevant to our city. And I saw that you had mentioned that we just don't have enough time to do that before the contract renews. Am I correct? Not enough time for a traffic analysis.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At the time that we decided to move forward with the renewal, that was not budgeted. So that was the reason we went forward with the renewal.
Thank you. It's just my desire to have actual data for our city when we consider continuing a practice of finding our citizens. I want it to be data driven. I understand that there is data that exists from other municipalities, and Councilor Mochler was mentioning the severity of the accidents in the data that we provided from other areas, that the severity had decreased. And I guess I would like to see evidence of that in our community. That's just my comment. I don't think you can answer that because you don't have a traffic analysis. So that's really all that I'd like to say on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Good now.
So this is one of those things that I don't know if I would have voted for them in the first place, but we have them now. And the only people who get tickets are folks who run the light. So it's an extension of traffic control or enforcement. And so it's working. And to me, the evidence would be, we haven't issued a ticket in 3 years. Let's get rid of them. That's not the case. People are still running the lights and they get it. And that's the reminder that that intersection, you need to slow down and you need to stop. We get residents all the time asking us to put in speed bumps to slow down traffic in their neighborhoods. I see neighborhoods probably that they haven't got anything from us yet. And there's handmade signs. There's those little yellow guys with the flag. I mean, this is one of the tools in the toolbox to keep residents safe and hopefully avoid those really bad ones. And a lot of them are just people who are rolling the corner. And that's what gets our pedestrians, right? Because they're just running that corner and they're not paying attention to somebody crossing in the other way. So I think that but this is just an extension of a contract that's already had. I think they've done a great job negotiating it. And you know, if you're asking me up down on just the contract, I think we need to run to continue with this and then maybe look deeper into some of these other issues. Thanks.
Any other council members for comment or questions? Okay, seeing, we can do a second round. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to read it into the record, in the ordinance 5426, it's 10.42.070 funds allocated. Oh, can I read the whole thing? It's a sentence. Okay. Yeah, it's one sentence.
Sure.
All fees collected in excess of all costs incurred by the city for operation of the automated traffic safety cameras pursuant to this chapter should be dedicated to transportation capital projects funds unless otherwise allocated by the city council. That is the provision under which I am asking council either at this time or at the next study session to devote the revenues from these red light cameras to road preservation and maintenance, so the people are not riding their bikes and crashing. And so that pedestrians and everyone can be safe.
I'll wrap up. This has been a tricky one for me, not this specific 2-year contract extension, but red light cameras in general. And it's actually been really helpful to hear from fellow council members my thought process, because I don't like ticketing people high amounts of money in general. There are issues, but the safety concerns and that's where I want to echo Councilmember Chamberlain's request for data, because to me the decision point is I don't want to rely on these cameras as a source of city revenue. If they are helping with safety, and they're having a significant safety impact in reducing fatalities or reducing collisions, or the severity of collisions, then I think they're in place. I don't want to keep them around just because we become dependent on them as a source of revenue. I don't think that's quite right. But hearing that there are federal studies out there that show they have the safety impact, I'm happy to support this 2-year extension. But in the meantime, I think it would be great to look at our region, and especially our city, and see if we can come up with data that really shows the impact of them in our city. So I want to put that out there. But yeah, thanks to my fellow council members for actually really, really helpful input. All right. That being said, I will go ahead and call for the question.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Abstain.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Let's see, 6 yeses and 1 abstention. Motion carries.
All right. That concludes general business. Next, we'll move on to council reports. Council reports are an opportunity for council members to provide an update on any issues or events taking place in the district, events they've recently attended or plan to attend, or speak on any other city-related topic. Since this is the first council meeting of the month, we'll start with Council Vice President Jennifer Chamberlain.
Hello, I have a couple of pictures. Let's see, I've even got a little bit of information. I checked that out. That is Lions Field. That's the first line that was put in. Director Elevato clarified for me that that was a water fountain, which that's not the water fountain. But there was a water fountain once at Lions Field. This was installed on May 10th, 1967. It has since been replaced, but I just thought it was cool. It was on social media. And so that's the first lion put there in 1967 by a donation through through the Lions Club. And boy, our park has really grown and changed in that time. But as I look at this old picture, I can still see like remnants. When I go to the park today, I went to the park today, I could see, old school. I just really like this picture. Then I just got one more picture. Happy Pride Month, everybody. I know we all are excited for different kinds of festivities or just honoring this time of month. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Wish everybody a happy Pride Month. Just a reminder that, this is just a time to celebrate love and diversity and inclusion and acceptance. And I brought my pride flag to wave today. And I want the record to show that that I'm the one waving the pride flag today. And so that's really, I want to say I have a couple of personal comments. It was really wonderful to see a packed house for Streeteries. I think that they're a welcome addition to the culture outdoors, and I'm excited to see how we can make them fit in compliance and safety, and also to continue community inclusion. But what I feel is really missing from public engagement at times is the concerns that we have for our houseless neighbors. And I would just love to see an outpouring of community in support of our neighbors who are houseless. And it's just kind of disappointing. It's something that people don't, they tend to want this issue to go away and sweep it under the rug and push it behind a building and, put it out of view. I remember at one point in time, I was at this is years ago, prior to our current mayor, the previous mayor, I had heard them make a comment about where they wanted to put houseless people. They wanted to keep them from out of view of the public and put them behind a building to receive services. And I remember hearing this previous mayor say this, and I was flabbergasted that they just wanted to make these folks disappear, and they're our neighbors. And so I just want to, he's not here anymore. But thank you, Kevin Naughton, for coming and sharing your frustrations and your story. And, he sat there and waited so that I could just have a quick conversation with him and I excused myself to go talk with him, knowing that he needed to go find a safe place to sleep. He didn't have a safe place to sleep, because he was trying to find a place, and he keeps getting harassed at the different places he goes to. So thank you for your grace and letting me leave for a few minutes to go check in with them. And let's continue working on this issue when we come up to budget season. There's solutions that we can craft together with community input. And by community input, I don't just mean the continuum of care. I mean the individuals who are impacted. So that's all I really have to share today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have District 2, Councilmember Fry.
Well, I too was amazed and enthralled. Actually, it was a happening tonight with all these people here, and hearing their voices and their passion. And I'm a strong advocate for small businesses and for tourism, attracting people into our city to spend money and the like. And so I love that. And the fact that the process was shaky, well, you know what? It ended up in tonight, which was great and part of the process. And so it's always good to check in with people and just put our thumb on the pulse of what's going on. I did also feel a little frustration with, God, we're spending all this time at a council meeting for information only, talking about the impact of 3 businesses. But I was able to kind of step back and think, wait a minute. I think it was when somebody said, let's just close the streets. you know, and I thought we could do that downtown, you know, we could definitely do that. And so I love it when we're able to, you know, look at a larger vision. Because if it was just the three businesses, I'd be probably saying something like they increased their square footage immensely, and, you know, didn't have to pay a lease payment on that square footage. You know, it's definitely a benefit to small business. But something we should be keeping in mind is if we're talking about equity, I think pretty soon landlords are going to be charging more for their leases because of the outdoor space. So there's ramifications whatever way you go. Thank you all for suiting up and showing up and sharing your perspective. It makes us better at what we do.
Thank you. Next up, we have District 4, Councilmember Dennehy.
You, Hans, you able to, great, thanks so much. I want to echo what Councilmember Chamberlain and Councilmember Fry stated about the participation, especially the houseless individual who showed up. I think it's so important to put faces and names where we've been so desensitized in this country that these are fellow Americans, fellow neighbors. And it was, I thought, the most powerful moment of tonight's meeting. So I appreciate that. If Hans can get my slide up, I just wanted to also wish everybody a happy Pride Month and give my council members and the administration just a heads up that I'm going to be introducing a resolution. I'll probably get it to legal on Friday for the upcoming study session and upcoming city council meeting in 2 weeks, where there are a lot of municipalities in the United States that recognize Pride Month by flying a pride flag underneath the American flag during the month of June. I'd like Bremerton to be one of those cities. You know, I think we're in a historic moment of having a majority queer council, which makes me very happy. But we're also in a historic moment of anti-trans, anti-gay laws being promulgated through hate through this entire country, and symbolic gestures such as flying the pride flag really do mean a lot for queer kids growing up in this country and queer adults growing up in this country. But if we can save just one life from suicide, or a trans kid or a queer kid that feels very, very alone, seeing the national news by knowing that this local municipality sees them and honors them fully, I hope we get the support from everybody and pass that resolution. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next up, District 5, Councilmember Goodnow.
It was really great to have so many people here. I wish we could have retained them. One of them was Rima Schultz. She was here with her little one, and then her husband actually spoke for a moment. But Rima opened a new business in Bremerton down on Callow District. And I just want to give a little shout out to a new business. It is called Spread Supplies, and it is just around the corner from Cafe Corvo, which a lot of people seem to know. It is an art supply store, but one of the coolest things I think she's doing is she's having like a option to get used supplies, so at an affordable price. And I know I've got project supplies at the house, and I can't wait to throw in a box and make her a problem. So anyways, Spread Supplies, go check it out. And she's really willing to get you what you need too. So that was pretty exciting. So I've heard it is Pride Month. And so I want to kind of mention that this is my 25th Pride that I've helped organize in Kitsap at the fairgrounds. And we used to do it here in the city, and we kind of outgrew the park. But just quick heads up, Kitsap Pride will happen on July 22nd. And there's other events and things happening. So you can go to kitsappride.org or find us on social media for that. Thanks for the comments that were already made. It's a weird time. You know, if you need a flag to fly in front of your house, let me know. I can get you one quick. So one of my favorite things to do is when I see a house flying a pride flag, especially in the month of June, I'll send them a postcard. So a little creepy, but anyways. So I just wanted to thank everybody. I thought we had some good conversations tonight. Power to the people, right? So, well, that's actually a Stonewall reference, which started the whole Pride movement, but it applies even to streeteries, I think. So that's all I have. Good stuff. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have District 6, Councilmember Mockler.
You're on mute. Ever since the emergency declaration was lifted, I've been having these monthly town halls, not huge attendance, but it just keeps building. The next one is the second Monday in June, which is June 12th. I hope you will attend and invite your friends and your neighbors and everybody you know to come. Next slide, please. So you're familiar with this by now. This is Lulu Haddon Park from the far end where the community garden used to be. And on the right side of the photo, you can see the two cars that are parked there. Mine is one of them because even though I live 3 blocks away, it is a dangerous walk with a small dog to get there. So I drive her over there. At the end of this, we're looking at where the playground used to be. I'm going to very respectfully disagree with the city's policy of advancing park restoration to those who have money. I think that it's a really good thing for parks that get the money. I think it's a great thing for the parks who get the money. But here's my poor Lulu Haddon Park. This is what it looks like. Next to where the playground used to be is where the water was turned off in March or April 2020. So this is just, I really love the power of the people, but the power of the people doesn't seem to be working here. People are going to Evergreen or Kiwanis, whatever park they can drive to. That was most of what I had to say, except that the geotechnical survey has been done at Lulu Haddon. And I asked Director Elevato and Mayor Wheeler on May 5th if there was any chance that the report and the 90% plans from parametrics could be completed in time to possibly send out bids this year. And so far, I have not heard back from them. Moving right along to the rest of District 6, people have urban farms all over there. They are like bringing up their urban farms. They are seed swapping at the Callow Seed Library. It's a really good neighborhood for mutual aid, where people are thinking, how can we take care of each other? It'd be nice for them to have a center, a community place where they could go and be. And I'm just going to move on to Pride, which is, wow, I think my first parade was in the Castro in 1978, before people started getting sick. And that was quite a carnival, an auto da fe, if you'd like. It was extremely outrageous. And then there was that long, really sad period. So the fact that we now have drugs that enable people to stay alive, I think that's a good enough reason to fly a flag right there and to attend the festivals. That's about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next up is District 7, Councilmember Younger.
So I was going to say no report, but I'm kind of shocked, and I don't know exactly the words that my fellow council member said, but I just want to say for the record that Parks doesn't have a policy of developing parks for people who have money or whatever. I don't want to say exactly what was said. People can review the tape if they want, but it's clearly not policy of the Parks Department or this administration or the City Council for that matter, in my opinion. Just want to say for the record, I do not find that statement to be true. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And last is myself for District 3. I got some slides. Before jumping in, let me just say, yeah, thanks so much to everybody who came to give public comment tonight. And, you know, thank you to the mayor and public works director. And I really liked in the mayor's report, all the great construction happening across the city. I know lots in my district. I always feel bad or butt heads occasionally on things like streeteries, but I do want to point out the vast majority of excellent work that the mayor's administration, public works is doing on all these great construction projects and a lot of great work across the city. But again, thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. And I do really appreciate Mr. Naughton being here to speak. That was really impactful to me. It's difficult sometimes in this chair and this seat having to moderate the public discussion. I wish I could give more than 3 minutes to everybody. I wish we could, you know, do things a little differently. But that was really impactful to hear from him. And I think that's going to inform a lot of our decisions down the road. And then before I forget, I wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Goodnow for your 25-year plus of effort. As we enter Pride Month, I don't have a slide, but it's thanks to your efforts and people like you that made it so that when myself and others grew up, not to highlight too much of an age difference, but we had a much easier time and things were a lot better. And now for kids growing up these days, things are even much better. There is still a long road to go, especially in different parts of the country. And but just thank you. All right, back to the slides. Went to WashDOT has twice a year they host a series of open houses for each ferry route. Last night was a meeting regarding the Seattle Bremerton route specifically. And you know, I kudos to them for hosting these meetings. There's a lot of good public Q&A, a lot of great information. I think the disappointing news is that they announced the Seattle Bremerton route is now estimated to be restored in early 2024. They're waiting on some graduating classes in the fall. My personal reading between the lines was, you know, it could be spring. It's not the first time this estimate has slipped. So that's really disappointing news. I know we've all kind of pushed to get that done as fast as possible. I don't see that happening any earlier. One thing I think people can have an impact on though, is that the recent legislature, as part of their funding for the ferries, assumed that the ferries would be able to levy, or basically said they shall levy a 4% fare increase to offset some of the costs. And they're considering how to increase that now. And I got a couple options on the table. One option that they haven't really put on the table, but at last night's meeting was brought up by myself and others, and they said could happen, is to increase other routes and say not Seattle Bremerton. So the routes that have been suffering from reduced service could have no to little fare increase, and routes that have a full service could have a larger increase to across the board, reach the 4%. So that link at the top is a public comment that folks can go to and give their input on this. And as I talked about before, and I mentioned last night several times, Bremerton being one of the poorest cities in the peninsula and the most diverse has been disproportionately impacted by the lack of ferry service. So this is one little thing I think they could do to honor their commitment to equity in helping offset that, is not increase the fare for Bremerton residents. So please take a poll and give your feedback. All right, on to happier news. Next slide. Also attended the PSRC, Puget Sound Regional Council annual meeting. Really great meeting. And the keynote speaker was the leader of this organization called 880 Cities. And the idea of the organization is that if cities plan for anything they do to be great for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, it's going to be great for everybody. And I thought, I hadn't heard of them before, and I thought that was such a great guiding philosophy. So I just wanted to point that out as something maybe we can keep in mind as we continue our development of thinking of the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old. And next slide. Got to mention that Juneteenth, People's March and Freedom Festival is this Saturday, June 17th. The march will start at 10 a.m. in the Northern Dix Government Center on the stairs, as it has for several years. And then the Freedom Festival is in Evergreen Park just down the street. So look forward to great attendance. But I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Not this weekend, next weekend on June 17th. Appreciate that. I had in my head this would happen before the next council meeting. So, oh, it's been a long night. All right. So yes, come on June 17th on Saturday. And I think my last slide. Yeah, I realized we hadn't had a general meeting since the Armed Forces Day Parade, but it was so fantastic to be with a couple of my fellow council members out there. Such a great turnout at the event, fantastic weather, really great organization by the mayor and the city on getting this done. Thanks so much to the Kiwanis Club, why am I blanking on the pancake breakfast? Lions, thank you. There's a line right there. I should, oh my gosh. Thank you so much to the Lions Club for their pancake breakfast. Just a fantastic, fantastic event. That concludes my council report. And with that, that's the adjournment of city council business, but we do have an executive session. So the council and I will recess for 15 minutes for an executive session. No action is anticipated. We will be back in 15 minutes at about 8:30.
And this is an executive session to discuss potential litigation.
Thank you. An executive session to discuss potential litigation. I missed the magic words. Thank you.
Recording stopped.